In this video, I'm going to talk about the topic of flash cards and the Neo Geo AES Plus. So some people worried because the console will run on 5 volt, their flash card or the one they pre-ordered won't be compatible with it. So first of all, people using flash cards. Well, one thing that of course is quite obvious that many people want to avoid actually paying for games, which again with flash card allows you to play these without actually a massive investment. But it's important to remember that using them to play games you don't own isn't legal. But for some people perspective, they can actually play it because the original games are just so expensive. And this is the reason why, by the way, so many people are happy that PlayerUnknown is releasing original cartridges at such a great price. Some, by the way, use it, depends on the local laws. By the way, I'm not an expert on this, but I know there are local laws that allow people to create a duplication or a copy of the software for backup. So some people might use this for this purpose, to copy it into flash card just to have a backup, just in case something, for example, the cartridge is damaged and they can't use it. Anyway, consult your local laws just to make sure, again, if you are doing something like that, if it's allowed. Others use it, by the way, because they prefer not playing, if they are collectors, not playing on the original cartridge because they are collecting it. They kind of want to reduce the wear and tear. This is part of the preservation, so they own a copy but prefer not playing on the original one. Some use it to play certain games that aren't translated into English and they want a version that they can play in English because maybe, you know, it's a game, it's an RPG in Japanese and they can't play it. Some people want also to have save states and other features that you don't get to have when you play in the original cartridge. Just so you know, for example, this one, just so you know, for example, the NeoSD Pro MVS, this one I'm showing you here from Stone Age Gamer, is legal. This is just a cartridge. It doesn't contain any game. And if you go down, you can see a disclaimer, and I'm just going to quote here. And similar Age Gamer and sales supports are intended to be used, and I quote, only for the following purposes: development, playing games licensed by Stone Age Gamer for use with the product, and or playing currently owned, personally backed up games and media where it's legal to do so. Stone Age Gamer does not offer support for any other use of this product. So in other words, there are also other reasons, for example, development, right? That people want to develop games. They want a cartridge where they can just write the game, you know, test it out, debug, and see how it works. And then, you know, eventually if you decide to release it on either maybe it's a writable media or maybe it's a, you know, fixed unwritable media. But just for development purposes, use this type of card. So what I'm trying to demonstrate, there are some legal things that people can do with the card that they want it to be supported on the Neo Geo AES Plus. So what's the problem? And of course you can just participate in the discussion in the comment. And by the way, if you haven't subscribed, so I mean, why not? I mean, just give it a click right now. I'm waiting. All right. Now, many people worry that there might be some kind of a security measure in place that flash card may not bypass certain restrictions in some cases, and they just won't work. And aside from that, flash cards have specific power requirements. Again, depends on the flash card. And the Neo Geo AES Plus system power output can sometimes cause problems if it's less or if it's more. So some people are concerned about those cards that will be blocked by the console itself, so they won't be able to use them. Although, as I know, of course, people always find a way to work around things, especially if the console is fixed. You know, they can create certain maybe adapters or update the cards to actually support certain console that these flash cards are aimed for in the first place. But considering what I mentioned, that it can actually use for development and other useful reasons, just blocking it all together kind of ruining a certain purpose to support the community, both especially developers who might actually extend the excitement about the console and even lead to more sales, but just more people actually playing new games that are being released. And for them to be released, developers need to test them on the console. I mean, there might be third-party tools, but it's always great to have the option to check and test things on the console itself. And the fact that it's actually even mentioned on Stone Gamer for development, you know, this is most probably used quite a lot by developers to test certain games and see how they work. Now, there are cards that work differently than a regular cartridge. They use almost no power because, I mean, the original one used almost no power because it just read data. Now, with some others, when you load a new game, they add to flash the data into the memory, and this process causes a massive amperage spike. So on the original hardware, this spike often can cause the 5-volt systems to reset or glitch, and people worry that the AES power supply might be rated for standard cartridges, which is low power, and won't provide that extra juice, usually 3 amperage or to 5 amperage, needed during the flashing process, causing the new console to shut down or fail to load again. Now there's also the part of voltage tolerance of modern ASICs. The ES, it doesn't use the original 90s chips, we know that. So from what I read, some people said that the old silicon was a bit loose, so it could handle a little extra voltage, kind of dirty power coming off the flash card without actually, failing. But other one can draw power in a way that causes a tiny fluctuation in the voltage rail, and a modern ASIC might interpret that as an error and trigger a protective shutdown. So what I'm trying to say that even if the AES Plus provides the correct 5 voltage, the behavior of the flash card's power draw might be too noisy, not regulated enough for the new console's strict modern tolerances. And also I read another discussion about the MVS to ES adapter factor, because some mentioned that the MVS version specifically, you have to use the physical adapter to fit it into the AES slot, and every time power goes through an extra set of pins, console, adapter, and then the cartridge, you get a small voltage drop. So some worry because for example, the NeoSD Pro MVS is already a power hog, that any tiny loss of voltage in the adapter can be a difference between a game running and the console seeing low voltage and crashing. So basically problems that can result first with peak draw, where you're loading a game and it takes way more power than the AES Plus might be designed to give. The other one is sensitivity. The new AES Plus chips might be too, let's say, picky about stable voltage compared to those 90s chips. And pin resistance, whether using an MVS adapter, for example, adds resistance, make it even harder for the card to get a stable voltage it needs. So the thing is that it's not the voltage will be wrong, they are more worried about the AES Plus power supply is too weak to handle that heavy lifting for example, the NeoSD Pro does during the loading phase. So we might see some issues that some cards might not work properly or might even not work at all, because we are talking about new hardware here that might be even less tolerant to certain things that the original one was tolerating. So yeah, I want to hear your take on this. I personally don't think they're going to implement anything that will block this. I didn't say this, but maybe there are some issues with current cartridges that were compatible with the previous one. It might not work at least as well here. And some of these cards are pretty expensive, so some people think themselves, well, I have this, I pre-ordered or I bought a flash card is hundreds of dollars and it's not actually be compatible with this one. So you can understand where they come sharing their worries when it comes to those cards. It's not really known for sure how it's going to work. There's much less information that we don't know yet, that the company will discuss about things related to flash cards. What are your thoughts about it in the comment section?